And the whole way here, I was like, give me the deets on the meats. I thought that would be a funny jingle. Yeah, let's start a marketing team together with jingles. I think that's our next career.
That's cool. That's cool. That's our next career.
So
like either one of us need another career.
Yeah,
right?
We should do more. Dot, we're not doing enough. Deep Meats 1 was released under the Ponybird name last year around this time.
Okay.
And I knew there was going to be a follow-up, Deep Meats 2. And that also came out under the Ponybird name. So if folks who had already started sort of listening to Deep Meats 1 and wanted the second part, they can find that under the Ponybird name. I also had the electronic project WEAREBISON, and I thought because those channels weren't being used, there's like all these distribution sites you pay for to have open. I was like, what if I put both of them out together as a long play, extended play, 12 song, as one big album, so that if people want, maybe they've never heard the first half, they want to hear it all together at once, they can go there.
Is there a storyline to that if it's all together as one?
Yes. So
wow.
All the songs were written around the same time about the same sort of issues that were happening. Most of them were written during the lockdown, and they were also being...
You call it the lockdown. Normal Earth
like,
people.
You know, the lockdown.
The pandemic.
Yeah, the pandemic lockdown. And during that time, I was finishing up a doctorate at Teachers College, Columbia University, New York, so I was commuting a lot.
Yeah.
My marriage was ending. We were selling our home, and then it was the lockdown simultaneous. So there was a lot of beginnings and endings that were really difficult.
That's not just a full plate. That's a full turkey platter.
It was a turkey platter. And, you know, there's that cliche saying I've heard in academia where they're like D&D, dissertation and divorce. And I'm like, yeah, that's a thing. There's statistically, marriages have a very hard time surviving when one person's in graduate school and they have to spend like an insurmountable amount of their time focus on that, because academia and dissertations tend to just, they take all the blood you have and a few kidneys.
I just finished
soundtrack to a nervous breakdown is what I call it.
Really?
Well, yeah, I'm being honest. I mean, we talk about mental health in a really performative sort of way, and we say, oh, everybody, you know, hope you're going to be all right. When it really comes down to it, in our relationships, I think people struggle with the intimacy and the stress of when something actually happens to somebody else. Yeah. If someone says I need to tap out, or someone says I can't perform my role in this relationship right now, people get freaked. Yeah. Because we're so interreliant on each other, and if you're not able to fulfill your own needs wholly, and you're too dependent or codependent on someone else in the relationship, and they say I need to tap out or I need a pause, it will fall apart. And you could really tell who and what is balanced and functional when someone in the equation says I'm hurting and I need to, this is going to feel selfish to you, but I need to do this. We banner wave mental health all over the place, but I think people really struggle with how that works in relationships when someone has a different need and the course of the relationship needs to change.
I think that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And you teach and you make music, and what else are you doing with your life right now?
I lay down a lot. I'm not gonna lie. Also a mental health thing, right? Like I found myself needing to lay down a lot to process. Like I have to close my eyes to process. And I think it's okay, like, and you were just saying about in the helping professions, and there's two narratives of self-care versus doing for others. Yeah. And I'll argue part of that is capitalism, right? Capitalism is very confusing in its messaging of grind, right. but we don't necessarily, we were just talking about what's happening with student loans, for example. That doesn't mean if we grind, we're going to get our basic needs met.
Right.
That may mean we get some scraps for doing more. Right. So where does it end? And it's a privilege to lay down, right? And it's also a form of resistance to stop. So I've learned from that nervous breakdown point that I've written about here, and from those relationships breaking and losing a lot, that the only thing I have is my well-being and what I feel in my conscience is right in my soul. That's all, the only currency I have in the world that I'll have at the moment.
I agree.
Right. If something's thriving, I think it can survive those things. If something's already under pressure or nimble or weak, then it's over. But then it doesn't help that there was also like this global pandemic.
Yeah.
So at that exact moment, I lost my New York community because I was commuting to the city. Lost my marriage. My family stuff was really stressed out, and to be honest with you, some of that had to do with conservatism versus liberalism, and if you want to be really kind of blunt about it.
Too.
So Deep Meats, the metaphor was like, we're in it. We're in like the most sort of intense part of things that happen to us in our bits, like in your core issues kind of get magnified. And so it's also, it's funny, it adds humor to it because there's a bit of tongue-in-cheek and sarcasm in a lot of the songs, but then there's some moments in the record where I think it gets really kind of like stark or heavy, and I think that humor balance or that sort of little metaphoric twist helps.
Let's do something really kind of cool. Let's play something heavy and then play something funny. So why don't you give me the name of...
Oh no.
Yeah.
Quiz.
Like
which one of the songs is heavy and which one's funny? Well, I would think Barriers and Fragility is heavy. That's a heavier one. And it's Barriers and Fragility is the last song on Deep Meats 1, which is sort of where we leave you at the end of Deep Meats 1 if you're following along with the story.
Okay.
And it has to do with like friends and enemies and frenemies and people who still want to take from you even when you're at your last leg, right? You're like, I got nothing left to give. And they're like, no. Give us a little more.
Just bleed a little deeper. Right?
You got it. That's a great segue to the song. I got my doctorate.
I'm so proud of you.
In the midst of that.
So proud of you.
But I'd say I'm as proud of this double album as I am of my dissertation in some ways. I was actually just talking to my dissertation sponsor about that because he wrote to me and he's like, I watched your documentary because I did a mini documentary about how I made the record.
Okay.
And I put it out like 2 days before the album came out last week. So it came out Wednesday, Friday the album came out. And he checked it out like I didn't know. So he wrote to me and he's like, you're a very interesting person. And I'm like, is that a compliment? Or I think it freaks.
Kind of leaning towards some kind
of... I mean, in academia, there's sort of an unspoken rule that like you are committed to that and that alone. And it's rare that you'll meet people who do like more than one thing because they simply just don't have the time for it, or their brain works in such a way that like research and reading and knowledge, and teaching that's their lane. And I am a polymath. So it's easy for me to jump from thing to thing and put hyper focus into each of those things. And maybe that's a neurodivergent thing, but that's a self-diagnosis I would tell you I have, because it's easy for me to move around like that to different sort of spaces of like knowledge and information and creativity and get super technical and into it and try to extend myself as much as I can. So I went from a doctorate at Columbia, which is high stakes and pressure, and then jumped to like, now I'm going to do a double record. And he's like, you're an interesting person. And I was like, is that how you would describe it?
I would describe you as,
nuts.
I would describe you as eclectically brilliant. And I believe that creative thing that everybody has, by the way, not everybody encourages it, but everybody has a creative place in their brain, and I believe that some of us, if we don't use our creativity, lose it.
Yeah.
Like I don't mean lose it like we don't get it. I mean we lose it like mentally. If we're not focused on more than one thing, our masters in my case, and a TV show and a radio show and writing for a magazine, all that stuff, if I'm not focused on all those things, then my brain has too little going on. Yeah. And then other stuff happens. Anyway, so
Oh, we've been watching the show Alone in Alaska. There's a total segue to Alone. I have to sneak it in.
TV,
it's a show about people like surviving in the wilderness alone. And this guy's like, I'm a military sniper, and if I'm not under extreme stress at all times, I'm bored. And I'm like, I get it. I get that. Would I make it in Alaska though? No.
So pretty soon this is going to be out in hard copy and in vinyl.
We're going to do an A side and a B side. That was kind of the plan when I knew I had that many songs, but it's really hard to put that many out at once. And I thought it would just be more interesting to kind of like create the like, ooh, there's a part two, like from like a marketing and interest perspective. So it also creatively gave me like these little, I had to do 2 sort of mini narratives, like 2, like scene, or what do you call it, act 1, act 2.
Yep.
And work smaller and make a creative arc in the first section of 6 songs, and then make a creative arc in the second section. And like, I like that better than like the big one. It's easier for me to work in chunks. And then like I said, from a marketing perspective, to have them be like sister EPs. And and so, yes, they're from the same batch of songs that were written around the same time, and they're produced similarly, but then there was some stuff where like maybe I got more technical in the second part. I don't know if that's audible to anybody, but like as I was doing the second part, I was like, ooh, I wish I could go back and do what I did here to these, but that's fine. So in a longer sequence, you could tell like the production's getting more advanced and technical as my skill set changes, but as 2 chunks, they each have like an up and a down, an up and a down. Like I tried to give them little like dramatic narratives.
You're talking about your songwriting process. So did these songs come in the order that they're recorded? And if they didn't, what made you put them in the order that they're in?
This is one of those questions that's going to drive me nuts because I'm still not satisfied. You asked a great question because I would be up at night like going, I don't know if I did the right sequence. Like every time I moved them, I'm like, maybe that's wrong, because there is an order, and I kept the playlist because just in case I ever want to go back to the order they were written, I had to move them though for the sake of, like I said, that theatrical arc in each section.
Absolutely.
So that, and I'll tell you, I still don't know if I made the right decision. There's a couple songs on there. One of them is Barriers, which you just heard, that was written during the process of making it. And then there's another one called Brace Yourself, Reckless, which was also written during the process. That, like, as I was putting everything together, these, like, other songs happened, and then they got, inserted.
Do
but
your words
most of them
come
were the
first,
same.
or does the music come first?
In this case, in this kind of songwriting, it's the drums first.
The drums came first. Wow.
The drums first, then the bass, and then the lyrics.
Wow.
And the whole.
That's not.
I think Barriers is the only. No, they were all drums
normal.
first. No, because when I write with a guitar, that's not how it happens.
Okay.
But I didn't write with a guitar for this. I wrote with drum machines and synthesizers.
Was that a new process for you, and does it feel totally different in the creative realm?
Yeah, and I almost like it better.
Do you?
So then I had to go backwards, wrote with drums and bass, and then lyrics, and then add all the other instruments, and then sit there, and Andre's here, who plays guitar on a few of the tracks.
Hi, Andre.
And I'd say, like, hey, do you know what chords these are? Because now I have to learn how to play them on the guitar. And go backwards.
Yeah,
so extract them from the recordings and try to play them live, which is a really interesting challenge, because I have no knowledge of, like, I can't read music, so I don't have any idea. I played all the instruments, and I couldn't tell you one note what any of them are.
These people that can't read music.
I can't either.
See,
So I'm like, what is that?
Yeah.
I can read music,
What
but
key
I can't
is
play
it? So I had to get Brian Ember, who's on the song we're going to play in a moment. That's a more tongue-in-cheek song called Riptide, and Andre to help me chart out, take them out of the recordings and figure out how to play them live, because I didn't start that way.
Do you hear in your head all of the instrumentation when you're writing music? You hear that in your head?
Yeah.
Of course you do.
And sometimes I can't get it all. It comes out so crude compared to what I hear. Like, I'll be dead asleep and I'll hear a complete, like, symphony in my head, and then wake, and I'm like, I'll be awake, start waking up, and go, hold on to it, and my eyes are opening, and then I'm like, damn it, and it's gone, and it was like the most beautiful song you've ever heard, and I'm like, I have no idea what that was.
Oh my gosh.
Because if I was the kind of
crazy.
person that could roll over and go like F sharp major and then I don't. And people have tried to show me, and I can't. It's like math. Again, in that neurodivergent way, there's parts of my brain that are literally not functional, and some that are hyperfunctional.
Can't
do math.
I can't do math.
But I can play the drums.
I can do math if I can do math if I write it, but I can't do math in my head. But I can also write a story in my head, and then when I write it, it comes out totally different. So let's play Riptide.
Brains, dude.
Because you suggested it, and it's supposed to have a little bit of tongue-in-cheek, kind of funny.
Yeah.
So tell me about Vox Fuzz Fox, because that sounds like
That's a weird one.
extremely interesting song.
That one
And
is
it's really
gibberish.
short.
I gotta be honest with you. So that song's a gibberish song on purpose because it's the finale, and I think it's got a very like silly, dreamlike sort of when you're coming out of an experience or a psychedelic experience, for example, or a really hard time, like waking up. Like if I'm sober 13 years as of yesterday, to be honest with you.
Congratulations. That's
We all know what a
awesome.
hangover feels like.
We do.
So after a mental health crisis, there is a very long period of time of like waking back up again, though changed. So Vox was like, hold on a second, like after the whole, let's say the whole Deep Meats narrative takes place in another world, and then you open the door back up to like, now we got to go back to work, and people, you know, we're all supposed to get back in our cars and go to work and take these masks off, and everything's fine. Let's just get on with life. And that's my little transition song of like, you can kind of make sense of the lyrics, but it shouldn't make clear sense to you for a reason. Like the song, the music is to simulate this idea of a hangover.
Been a long
Why
time
not?
It's been a long time since I had one, like almost 30 years.
Right. Hey,
Right?
Nux, dude.
Was Fox, and it's
What does it mean?
It's not normal, but I think
We're
that-
atypical on Deep Meats. We welcome atypical in Deep Meats 1 and 2.
right? So if you could tell the world one thing about this new Deep Meats 1 and 2, what would you tell them that you want them to get from this?
I don't know, if you feel like hanging out by yourself with your headphones on, doing whatever you do to feel comfortable, and you want to hear from somebody else who's maybe gone through questioning, all right, why are we here? What are we doing? Love, relationships, self-relationship, then this is the album for you. It's a headphones album. It's a personal journey. It's a very dramatic and theatrical way of explaining something difficult.
Mm-hmm.
And I hope there's peace for you in there, because there's peace for me in that ability to say what I need to say, and that you find that for yourself as
So
well.
I think that what you're saying is this has been a very therapeutic and healing album for you to write.
Yes.
I'm glad to hear that. I am hoping that you will bring this album and some music to the TV show, because
I'm not gonna wear as much makeup this time, Dot, because last time I was on your show, I put on too much makeup because I was worried about the camera stuff. I remember driving to the show going, what the heck?
do you see how much makeup I wear? So
It was awful.
For TV, we put on mascara and sometimes
No,
something on my
I went
lips.
hard on it.
You did, but that's okay. That's okay.
I
We'll
was
have you
laughing
back.
so hard.
We'll have you back and we'll let you do whatever you want.
This time I'm bringing a drum
Okay.
machine. Okay.
All right. So I'm going to play Brace Yourself and Reckless because they go together.
That's my favorite.
And
That's my favorite on the whole album, I gotta be honest.
That's awesome. Here is Brace Yourself and Reckless. You can find all of this 2-album set on every streaming platform, everywhere. It's everywhere that you want to find it. So
And at Ponybird Music on Instagram, or at WeAreBiSon on Instagram, and you get all the updates.
awesome.
Check it.
Awesome.